The election of Abraham Lincoln was caused by popular vote and high electoral votes, because of his ideas that the people liked and the fact that he was an abolitionist. The effect it had on the war was that it pretty much caused it because he was against slavery, and it influenced the Northerners and Southerners to take a side and begin a war against each other.
What the Dred Scott decision caused was more tension between the slave and non-slave states. This was one of the many reasons that helped lead into the Civil War. The effect was on the whole nation. It affected the nation by splitting it by having conflict of the slave states and non-slave states.
Abe Lincoln's inauguration was caused by being elected the President of the United States by the American people, so he had to make his speech before he could move on and take the office. This affected the Civil War because it caused Lincoln to be fully the president, which made people want to be with or against his ideas of slavery, and the people began the Civil War to decide who was right.
What caused the first Battle of Bull Run was when the Union Army went on the offense and tried to attack the Confederates. It was a Union loss. This helped show the Union that this was not going to be an easy war. The effect was it showed both the Union and the Confederacy to get prepared because it was not going to be easy.
The cause of the battle at Fredericksburg was there were many battles going on around Fredericksburg, and the Southerners decided to stage a large attack on the Northerners so that they could be able to have an even bigger attack on the capital. The effect it had on the Civil War was that America lost 900 men, and there were many more smaller wars because of this.
What caused the Battle of the 7 Days was the Union Army was trying to take the capital of the South, but Lee's army took the Union soldiers back in a series of battles over the course of the week. The effect was that Lee made the Confederates look like winners and encouraged the British to plan a possible intervention of the side of the South.
The cause of the battle at Gettysburg was because the Southerners and Northerners decided that each of them did or did not want to have slaves, so they began a war against each other to decide who would get their way. The effect on the Civil War was that there were over 50,000 men killed in the battle, and most slaves were freed somewhat soon after, which caused more anger amongst the people.
The cause of Virginia splitting was that West Virginia did not like the choices that Central Virginia was making. Also, half of Virginia wanted to fight with the Confederacy, but half wanted to fight with the Union, so they split. The effect of Virginia splitting was that there was more conflict between them.
The cause of the battle at Spotsylvania was the generals on both sides, the Unions and the Confederates, were both angered with each other about the slavery issue, and they both found out where the Spotsylvania courthouse was, and they both were planning on an attack on each other very nearby there. The effect it had on the Civil War was that another 15,000 men were killed, and that there were more wars.
What Sherman's march caused was chaos through Georgia because the Union was trying to scare the people so they would abandon Confederate cause. The effect of Sherman's march was the destruction of rich farmland and railroads, helping to starve the Confederate armies.
The cause of President Lincoln's assassination was because he got rid of slaves for many people, including John Wilkes Booth, his killer. John was angered that he lost his slaves, so he entered the theater booth and assassinated Lincoln. The effect on the war was the war died down, and the general of the Confederate Army, Robert Lee, surrendered to the general of the Union.
The KKK was made by Southerners who did not like the slaves being free. The Southerners would go around and use public violence against slaves as intimidation. The effect of this was that the free slaves were getting mad, but most of the time they didn't fight back because they could have been killed.
The cause of the Compromise of 1877 was the election of the new president, Andrew Jackson. After the war started to die down, the Southerners and Northerners decided to end the war. Both sides signed the compromise, and the war ended soon after. The effect it had on the Civil War was that the Civil War ended.
What caused the Black Codes was the white Southerners wanted to regain power on the slaves and used the law in order to achieve this. Southerners created black codes which served as a way to control the freedom of ex-slaves. The effect of the black codes was they wanted to keep slaves from voting.